Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today at another Get to Know the Candidate. And I hope that right now you are settling in, having all your questions. You might be wondering, why do I have a live stream right now if you think there's no elections? So we're going to get into that in just a minute when Antoinette Scully, who is running for the special election of Los Angeles District Council number 6, which is preceding Nury Martínez, who used to be the councilwoman there. So I hope everybody's having a wonderful time. I'm wearing my heart, and I'm sending you all so much love right now in this Valentine's Day. So stay tuned, and please make sure that you are also having your questions, that you're sending this live stream to friends, because we're about to get into a very exciting conversation. So with no further ado, let me welcome to the stream Antoinette Scully, who is running for City Council. Hi, Antoinette. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Am I coming in loud and clear?
I can hear you perfect. If folks in the
Yay.
audience can hear us, please put a heart in the comments or just put a little comment. I'm getting a little comfortable. Happy Valentine's Day. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's been a nice Valentine's Day. I got to see a couple people. It's pretty nice. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I have been just working a lot and just home and kind of enjoying this kind of, cool weather. So it's a perfect Valentine's Day for those that have, a little honey waiting so that they can, snuggle up.
It is. It got really cool. I loved it when it was warm a couple days ago, and I got to go to the park and do some work at the park. And I was like, yes, please, love this February weather.
Absolutely. So, speaking about working in the park, I have so many questions from you for you. I think a lot of people in the audience have questions for you too. I just want to preamble before we move forward with the questions that we in Los Angeles, we're having a special election. This is again a special election because last year, due the scandals with the recordings that were found and brought to light, some very derogatory comments from Councilwoman Nury Martínez, she decided to step down and open the path or the door for a special election for folks to run. So we're having elections now, a special election. So I wanna make sure that people know that this is what's going on here, and this is why you're running. But if you can tell us a little bit about who you are and introduce yourself, and educate my audience about your work and what you have been up to.
Yeah. So, I first want to say that I got into this race mostly because I was a constituent of Nury Martínez. I was like, what is happening? I know we all kind of had these ideas. We kind of could see through her policies how she felt, but it was evident once these tapes leaked, right, that we needed something new. We needed some change. And I have been working as a racial justice educator for almost a decade now. And I just thought, what if we had someone in city council that cared deeply about the constituents, that wanted to do work from an anti-racist perspective, that was pro-Black and pro-Indigenous and all of these things. How would our system be if we had someone that wanted to bring this care model into our communities, right? Bring them out of our communities and into City Hall. And so that's why I was inspired to run. I've been seeing other progressives like myself make it on the ballot and then make it into City Hall. And I'm a community organizer, so I'm in no way oh, I'm going to be the person that kind of makes all this change, right? No, this is a group effort. And so the more progressive and caring voices you have in office, the more likely you're going to get done what you need to get done. And so I've done racial justice work. I had an opportunity to be a caseworker for a little bit. So during the height of the pandemic, I helped build not a racial justice space, a homelessness outreach space for unhoused folks in Studio City to get care, to get resources, to get interim housing, paperwork and IDs, case management. And now I work full time for a faith-based women's organization that centers the voices of women and girls. And so I'm an organizer, and I want to bring all of that to City Hall. So I hope that kind of
Beautiful,
gave you
beautiful. And,
yeah.
I want to reflect a little bit because I don't think a lot of people know this about me, but I actually started organizing in the faith-based space. So my first organizing gig was with the Pico Network, many, many months ago here in California, in Orange County, and organizing around immigrant rights issues. So
Mm.
it's an incredible space, and it's a really, I think, I never really consider myself a very religious person. I was kind of raised in somewhat in a cultural Catholic home, but not per se, like heavily, we never really pray much or things like that. We were more like cultural Catholics. So, but it
Yeah.
has definitely shaped that relational model that they had, that has definitely shaped my organizing style deeply, and I definitely, we'll get to talk more about that. But yeah, we'll get to talk more about that. But what are so you mentioned that you work in putting together resources for homelessness in a time where really the most forgotten were our unhoused population, and around COVID, in the quarantine, nobody really was really
Yeah. I
thinking about
mean,
them.
everybody was running inside and I was crazy. I was running outside, right? Like I get why firefighters run into burning buildings because you're like, hey, somebody needs to get this done. And so I was part of a church community. We were trying to figure out how we could help and provide space because the building was empty, right? Like people were staying home. We were doing services online. And this model already existed in North Hollywood, right? So I didn't have to think of a brand new thing. We just said, well, how do we get a thing that's already working somewhere else here? We had the space to do it. We had the volunteers that would want to do it. We were able to raise some money so that we had this little pot of money so that we could actually get the services done. And within a year, I want to say it was like 8 months, we went from no program at all to a fully fledged, we did it one day a week for 4 hours. People could get 2 hot meals. They could get free clothing. We would sign people up for mail, so you could use the address for mail because you can't get any services if you don't have an ID, and you can't get an ID if you
Right,
don't have an address, right? So there all of these barriers,
right.
and so we created this space that was calm and people could come and be safe, and it was so magical. For a little bit, we had live piano music because a volunteer played piano and she would take music requests. And so we built this space on this care model, on a harm reduction model, and it got people inside. People came, people felt good. People said, okay, well, then I trust you. Put me on the list. I want to go into interim housing. Some of those people got emergency housing vouchers during that time. And so some of those people made it inside to permanent housing. Like that wouldn't have happened if one random person hadn't been like, you know what, we want to do something better. So yeah, it was amazing. And that gave me an opportunity to see kind of experience that I hadn't had before. And I worked myself into a job. Like I got hired on with NoHo Home Alliance to run this drop-in program. I got trained to do field outreach. I did housing coordination between our organization and the matching system. And so it kind of ballooned very quickly from a volunteer community organizer to a full-time, caseworker, outreach, hundreds of clients really quickly because the need was there.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it was big.
Wow, incredible. And I think for a lot of us Angelinos, and for a lot of people that live in places where there's a huge unhoused population, they oftentimes feel like they're hopeless. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to help. And I think that this is such a great example of something that you have done, that you were able to accomplish, that is not so hard to be part of the solution. That is actually maybe easier to be part of the solution. So it seems that you have a lot of experience on, on this front, which again, I think is refreshing to see, because we don't see a lot of city council people, like a lot of people running on a platform to of like services. We heard of people running for a lot of different reasons. I run for city council also for other reasons, for for the environment, and more housing policy. That was more like, as a renter, that was important to me. But this is such an important, like, that mutual aid kind of model that I think is kind of forgotten sometimes, or it's kind of looked less than, because we just don't have a big understanding of what it is. So it's good to see somebody like you running for office that has that type of background that is so necessary today, so necessary in our city council.
I mean, I think if you think about it, right, making sure we have equitable climate solutions, making sure that you have sanitation, any of these are services, right? So I think that the model of care is just an exponential idea from where the city is supposed to give us services, and then building it into an actual community-based model, right?
Right.
We talked about this network of organizers, we talk about a network of community organizations. And I think that knowing that I've worked for a community organization that was able to work with the city, right? Those are the people who know what's going on, right? The organizers at Somos Sevilla Valles, the organizers at PAC Solidarity, all of these people, they know what the community needs. And when we leave them out of the question, when we just say, well, we'll get it done on our own, we leave open so much community knowledge, right?
Yeah.
We lose some of that care because we're not willing to do it in a collaborative way. And so it's not me, right? I'm running for city council. I'm the face of this. I'm, the person that you're here to talk, but the real goal, right, is to push some of this movement work further into our civic engagement, right? Is to
Yeah.
kind of push this forward so that we all get a say in the world we want to build. That's really what the work
Absolutely,
is.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, we're talking to Antoinette Scully. She's running for city council in Los Angeles for District 10 and a special election that is coming up. So if you have any questions for her, please head to the comments. If you're on Instagram or everywhere, I know we're streaming live on Twitch, on Twitter, on YouTube. So please share your questions and we can bring them forward for her. So why are you running, Antoinette? Why are you running?
I'm running to really see an opportunity for community-based people to have a say in what's really going on. I'm running to move away from the business as usual establishment that's been using these like spaces, using city council spaces to just make money, right? My whole point is not that it's about me, right? It is about us. It is about making sure that the district is cared for. It's about making sure that the laws that come down from city council are equitable and make use for everyone, right? Like it is simply to continue this idea that if we all work together and we uplifted the most marginalized people, that we would all rise.
Yeah, yeah. That's beautifully put. Thank you for saying that. So, some of the things that we've been talking about homelessness, and I want to get your take about what are some of the other issues that you want to bring forward and that you believe are important for your campaign.
Yeah, I think my priorities in this are homelessness, equitable transit, and climate justice issues. And so with climate justice being a really big piece, especially for District 6, I don't know if you know this, but District 6 has a private airport. we're bumped up against another private airport that's not in our district but is across the street. We have a landfill, we have a gas plant, we have a Superfund site that they're trying to clean up due to all of the chemicals from the airplanes for the past couple of decades, right? So we have all of these things, and people are being left out of these conversations because the city is finding ways to gerrymander us and cut us out of the district. And we are basically the dumping grounds for the 1%, right? You can't get a plane flight out of the Van Nuys Airport. Those are private airplanes. Those are private jet airplanes.
I didn't
Dumping.
even know that you could take an airplane out of the Van Nuys
You
Airport.
can't. It is
It's
a
private,
private
yeah.
airport, so that means that you need to have your private plane. That who can afford private planes, Aura? Like
Oh my
the
God.
people who can afford private planes are not living in Van Nuys, right?
Right.
Those of us living in Van Nuys are having the pollution dumped in our schools and our houses and our communities. And so what we need is an effort to hear more of the people who live here and say, we don't want planes flying at 2 a.m., right? I don't want my windows rattling every 30 seconds because the planes are flying over my house and jet engines and pollution, right? They said they would close the gas plant in 2020. And so now we're still
Right.
waiting to see if that's going to happen. And who's keeping up with it and who's paying attention and whose watch is it to make sure that it's an equitable transition, not just for the people who are suffering from the methane leak, but for the people who work there, so that we're not just tossing out people and their livelihood, right? We want to make sure that they can have jobs that they get to go to, but jobs that aren't literally killing them, right? So
Right.
those are the kinds of priorities I have that are climate justice based. And I will say that some of that work comes from working with climate activists that have been here in the Valley and in this city. Some of that work comes from living in this part of the district. The homelessness, of course, comes from my work as a caseworker. And then, just being a person who lives here and has relationships with unhoused folks, talking about unhoused folks as neighbors and as friends instead of those people over
Those
there,
people.
right? And my third top priority in this is the transit piece. You can get around LA on public transit, but many places don't have bus covers for the heat and for the rain, and many places don't have seats. Like, how can you ask someone to stand for the bus for an hour, right? Like, how is that equitable in any way?
Yeah, we have so much work to do when it comes to public transit. It's embarrassing for me that Los Angeles is the second largest city in the country with and one of the six biggest, economies in the world, and we had such a sad public transit in so many ways. You're talking about the service that public transit serves, right? Like,
Yes.
do they come on time? Are they effective? Are they efficient? Is there shade structures where you're waiting for the bus or the train or so? Am I gonna get harassed or is it safe for me to be there? Is it does it have enough light at night or whatever? Or but like the most basic thing is that do we have it? Which in so
Right.
many places, if you're an elder person, if you are a person with disabilities, if you don't have a car, sometimes you have to walk so far to get to the train or to get, well, the train, forget it. That's like a luxury here, but like to get to a bus. And so it's not a perfect system. And I hope, we work towards it. So tell us about your plan about making this system better.
Well, part of it is reallocating funds, right? The city is well funded, and a lot of those funds go to our criminalization and enforcement. And so homelessness is a great example of how we could fund homelessness as a full-time, year-long commitment instead of in spurts and in small projects here and 3 months there and maybe 6 months here. And we really don't look at it as a full-time part of our budget. And so because that is happening, we are not putting in the resources for people to get housed, right? We spend
Mhm.
so much more money on our unhoused neighbors than just funding the programs, the services, the care model. And that would be much less costly. Like,
Mhm.
I mean, I feel like people hear something as divisive as defund the police or abolitionist. And what that really means is, can we give support to the people in our community so that we're not overfunding police to fix the problem later? Because it
Mhm.
doesn't fix the problem, right? It perpetuates the problem and the cycle continues. When you have something like sweeps that perpetuates this problem with the unhoused, right? Treating it as a criminalization or as a priority to get people off the street. What you're really doing is taking money away from services. You're taking money away from
From
them being
solutions,
able
yeah.
to do solutions. Exactly. And so that is a really big push, right?
Yeah.
The previous councilwoman removed money from outreach and connecting the council district to finding Section 8 housing, right? When you do that, of course, you don't get people off the street. So refunding the departments that make it so that we have services is a top priority.
I want to talk a little more about this because we see right now, you know, there's a lot of 4111, which, if you don't know what I'm referring to, is the law that made it illegal to is the law that enforced being illegal to sleep, sit, lay, on the street and public places. So now elected officials have the mechanism to, choose areas, near a school, near a church, and where they can do a sweep. And this is so troubling because sweeping people doesn't, well, number one, is extremely inhumane, and number two, it doesn't resolve the problem. Like, just because you have a
Exactly.
house dirt, like a house, just because there is dirt in your home, and you sweep it under the rug, it doesn't mean that it goes anywhere. It's under there, it's
Well, that's a
somewhere.
great example, right? That's a great example of how, if we were funding services, right? We get a lot of these complaints of like, oh, they're making a mess here, or they're blocking the sidewalk there, or I mean, I just hear people talk about our unhoused neighbors as if they are animals and feral. Like, oh my God, they're pooping on the street. I mean, like, if you didn't have your house that had
A
public
restroom, where do you think you're
restrooms, if
gonna
you didn't have
go?
a place, if you didn't have your trash taken out every day for 2 or 3 weeks, how would your house look? And I think that the services that we could be providing for people are easy. It's easy to add a hand washing station at encampments. It's easy to add a porta potty at encampments or even in public, right? I as a parent have a hard enough time, a housed parent have a hard enough time finding a place to go to the bathroom in public. And
Yeah.
I can't imagine how much more difficult it is being unhoused, where every place
You're not
punishes you.
welcome. You're not welcome anywhere. Yeah. Yeah, this that is so much. And I also see, for example, in Culver City, which I'm very close by, they're also putting in enforcements, this type of laws, without really providing housing opportunities for folks, or asking them, or taking, or sending them somewhere that they can be. So it's a real complicated problem. And it's going to require everyone to work on it, and it's going to require for all of us to be courageous, just like bike lanes and just like the bus, or like the
Yeah.
public transit is something that is so divisive, where, in my opinion, it shouldn't be. But unfortunately, this is where we're at. We're talking to Antoinette Scully. She's running for Council District 6 in Los Angeles. I see a lot of questions, folks, and I'm gonna get to them. Believe me. So stay tuned because we've been talking about 4118. Thank you for that correction. It wasn't 4111, it's 4118. What was 4111? In any case, so yeah, we'll move to more of the environmental stuff in just a minute. So stay tuned. But if you want to ask any questions, you can also, if you're in Instagram, you can go to next to the comment box. There is a little like symbol in there, a question mark, and you can put your question there and it will live there forever. So don't worry. I lose it in the chat. And folks on Instagram, on Twitter, and on YouTube, I see tons of comments and they're all really great about KDL and all that. And we'll get to those shortly. I want to talk about environmental issues, and you have a gas plant, a methane plant in your community. But before that, I want you to tell us, who is District 6? Who lives there? Where is it? If somebody's watching here, maybe I know and you know, but there's a lot of folks that don't know and that might have friends that, they might want to send this video or share who you are with them. So who is in District 6? What's happening there? And where is it?
So I consider District 6 the mid to northeast valley. And so if you look at a map, it is very awkward. If you look at a map, it's this kind of gerrymandered L shape where it starts from the mid valley, Lake Balboa.
What neighborhoods are those for the people that are not? Yeah.
So Lake Balboa, Van Nuys, moves slightly north to Panorama City, North Hills, and then it starts to move a little east to a little farther north to Arleta, east to Sun Valley, and little bits of Pacoima and North Hollywood. And so right, so it's a very large district, and the problem really comes down to that there's barely any neighborhoods in the district that are full neighborhoods, right? We don't have all of Van Nuys. We have a part of Van Nuys. We don't have all of Sun Valley. We have part of Sun Valley. We have a tiny bit of North Hollywood. I believe that we have all of Lake Balboa now, but that's a brand new addition with the redistricting. And so it's some of those pieces where the difference in the neighborhoods are very stark from the mid south part of the valley to the northeast part of the valley. I got a little
yes, show us the map.
Yeah, so so it's this like really goofy, clearly cut around places. I mean, you can see here at this North Hollywood section, why would you do this? Why would you do this?
That's what gerrymandering does to us. It's a whole other conversation that we can have that we don't need to have it right now, but we could, but we're not going. Maybe we'll revisit that in a moment. There's a lot of people asking about Kevin De Leon and how you're going to behave in the city council. Basically, I think that's where this question is coming from. But I want to talk about environmental justice and environmental racism in these gas plants. And I want to connect that a little bit with what's going on in Ohio, which is kind of, I believe, the question that Hola Pablito 88 is asking. He just basically said, let's talk about what's going on in Ohio. All right, Pablito, we hear you. But we want to connect this to what locally is happening. So tell us a little bit about what's happening here in terms of environmental racism and environmental justice in your community. And then we'll connect that with Ohio because it really is a no-brainer.
Not knowing the demographics of Ohio, the demographics of CD6 are highly Hispanic, right? So I think it's about 76%. There's probably about 8 to 9% Black, and then every other racial heritage is in that like 1 to 2%. And so when you talk about the environmental racism that is happening here, it is quite clearly a sacrifice zone, right? It is low income, immigrant populations, undocumented populations that are being killed, right, have lower lifespans, have lower health outcomes because
Mhm.
of things like these gas plants, the Sun Valley landfill, the air pollution from the airplanes, right? Like higher rates of asthma and respiratory illnesses, higher likely of infant mortality rates and childhood issues. And so like there's all of these things happening. And I think that people don't want to talk about that, right? They don't want to talk about the ways in which people in Sun Valley in particular, are being thrown away, right? Sun Valley, in some places, doesn't have like public street drainage, and so their streets flood, right?
Mhm.
People in like Balboa and Van Nuys are dealing with the air pollution. Um, the parks in many of the places in CD6 don't have restrooms, right? So we're finding all kinds of ways to leave people out. And it is heartbreaking when you combine that with the racist tape that was leaked and the work of what's actually happening in the district, right? So you see what that manifests like when you don't care about the people who live here. It's very
Absolutely.
clearly
I
racist.
wanna take a bunch of steps back because it's important for us to also recognize. I think you gave us a really great analysis of the demographics and why these things happen in environmental justice communities and like low income communities of colors, Black and Indigenous, Latinos, in these communities. Specifically in the Valley, is it has been really a crime, and we have a city council woman for many years that actually ran in a platform of environmental justice that fought your prior councilwoman. But you know what? She never fought to close that gas plant, which is kind of interesting to me. Not to the extent that we need it. Los Angeles right now is moving to 100% renewable energy, and I don't understand why we still have that. I don't understand why we still have a methane gas plant functioning, because we need, the power just in case we need it. Where we could use other sources like solar battery storage, where we can store the power of the sun and employ people locally and stop polluting communities. Utilities have such a huge hand in our political process, huge hands.
Yeah.
And and as someone that sat in many environmental justice, committee, the former Energy and Environment Committee, of Los Angeles, we used to hear some elected officials speak, and you could grab a talking point from a utility and believe that they were just reciting their talking points. So, it's refreshing to hear you talk about this, because also as a woman of color, you as a Black woman, and
Mhm.
happy Black History Month, everybody. Put your hearts in the
Yeah.
comments. Black History Month, let's go. And me as an Afro Latina, Black Latina from Colombia, it's extremely important that our faces are also demanding justice for our planet and for our people. Because
Yeah.
oftentimes it's said that, you know, that environmentalists don't look like us.
I mean,
That
they
we don't.
don't. They
I
don't.
mean, don't they? You
And
are an environmentalist and you look the way you do. And I
I have been
am too.
in I've been in many rooms where the environmentalists don't look like me, but I think that, to your point, right, being more vocal about this, being more open about this, and you cannot you cannot go through these waves of protest and power shift and changes, right? To me, environmental justice is Black Lives Matter, is Indigenous lives matter, right? Like, to me, environmental justice and healthcare is Black Lives Matter and Indigenous lives matter and people of color's lives
Intersectionality,
matter, right? Like, so
intersectionality.
these are not separated, right?
Mhm.
The healthcare problems that people are having in the district are connected to the environmental injustice issues, and those are connected to the education injustice issues, and those are connected to the housing injustice issues, right? So these are not separate concerns for me, and I think that it's really interesting that most people say, well, here are my priorities for stopping homelessness, and here are my priorities for environmental justice, and here are my priorities for transportation, and they're so separate, that you have different solutions in all kinds of different ways, but really these are all interconnected and intersectional, and you cannot solve one without thinking about the other, right? You can't
100%.
you can't
100% I'm with
solve
you.
transportation and covers and people being outside in the heat if you also don't think about the lack of tree cover in CD6, right? These are all interconnected. You can't think about people being able to walk properly on the sidewalks that need to be repaved, or the bike lanes without repaving the streets. Like, these are all so interconnected that I think that when you think about a care model, it is a holistic way to look at interacting with each and every person who lives here.
Well, yeah, I want to see you in the city council really tackling LADWP, because they definitely need a care model, 100% a care model there. But okay, we have lots of questions. Thank you, everybody. You can continue putting your questions. If you are on Instagram, you can put them in the comments, but don't actually put them in the comments. Head next to the comments to the question mark symbol and add them in there so that we don't lose your question. But I have tons of questions from Facebook and from YouTube, from a lot of other places that I want to tackle. I want to first talk about, and I'm going to make this question about Kevin De Leon a more global question, because,
Okay.
I mean, we have bigger fish to fry, really. You're not going to be, you as a councilwoman are not going to have the power to fire him. None of us have. So that's
If they
why
did,
he's
they
still
would have,
there.
right?
Yeah.
Right?
So we have done what we
They could
can.
have, they would have.
We need to amend the charter. But I like the question, Camille Lewis. I see you, and and also Andrew Grabner is asking this question. So okay, so here it is. You get elected. You become the councilwoman for Council District 6. You're gonna work with another 14 people that have many different ideas, sometimes very similar to you, some others not so much. One of those colleagues is gonna be Kevin De Leon. And other folks that you might not be so jazzed about them. We don't need to, go on extent about that. But what are some of the things that you are planning to do? So, for example, people are here saying, are you going to vote no in their motions? And I have my own opinions, and I don't want to go in there. I want to hear you, because my opinions might not be so popular here.
I think that it's not. So here's the thing, right? If we could have gotten this person out of office already, it would have been done, right? It would have happened by now. No one is holding on to Kevin De Leon because they think that he's doing a great job.
Right.
And I can't say that I would automatically vote no on his motions if his motions are in alignment with my values, because I think the point of this job is to work for the constituents. The point for me to be in this position is to care for the constituents. And so, do I want him out of office? Of course I do.
Excellent. Let me bring that other question. Somebody's asking here. Andrew Grebner, would you support efforts to get KDL to resign and possibly recall efforts?
I would. Of course I would.
Okay, excellent.
Right? I mean, that's a very clear, that is a very clear ask of both his constituents and many other people in Los Angeles. Right?
Beautiful.
That's
okay, so we got that handled, y'all. Excellent. My question to you is, because this is a sticky point, which is, again, you're going to work with people, and we see this in Congress, and we see this at the local level. You're going to work with people that maybe you're like, oh my God, I can't believe this person is elected, and I can't believe it's sitting next to me and is my colleague. So I mean, how are you going to deal with that part? Like, what's your plan to also bring communality? Because at the end of the day, you want to also bring resources to your community just like they do, even if they not so great,
I mean, you have to think of it this way, right? I have been a Black woman my entire life. I have been in rooms of people who think very little of my identity, very little of my mindset, very little of what I think is going to be important for my constituents. And I'm seeing that already, right? I'm going to take this job seeing how little people care about the constituents of CD6. And I'm going to fight for those constituents. And I'm going to be respectful and, I guess, personable, right? I'm not going to spit in the face of the other council people, right? But
please don't do that. That will make that will. I feel like, look, even my phone folder. I mean, like, I feel like that will not be a good idea.
The point of this is to say that, like, I'm willing to do the job to the best of my ability, and if that means sitting in council with people I disagree and then loudly disagreeing, that is a thing I can do. That is the work that needs to be done, right? It is clear that we can have these conversations as adults and do this as an adult and say, look, your opinion here is misguided. Your opinion here is deadly and dangerous, especially on things like 4118. And also be a kind and compassionate human being, because that's the kind of person that I need to be for me.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
that is the
And
work that I do.
I want to just say this very briefly because we have a lot of questions in the chat right now. Just keep them coming, Joel. And I come from a collaborative point of view. I want to work with people that I disagree. Because you know what? As a woman of color, as an immigrant that was undocumented, as someone that has been in very powerful and prestigious positions, I have also been the person that nobody wants to work with because I'm maybe too radical, because I'm a member of the Democratic Socialists of America and I like Bernie Sanders, because, for many reasons, because I'm not good enough, I'm not, my hair is too curly, whatever it is. And I also believe that we need to work with others. And it's so sad to me that is oftentimes my own community of more progressive folks who criticize me because I strive to work with people that are not so progressive, but they maybe need a little bit of hint of progressiveness.
That is definitely the work of like being in office, right? Like and that's part of it. I will say that as an activist, as a community organizer, I am happy to get shit done and to collaborate and do all the things. Mm-hmm. The one thing that I'm not great at, and I think that's just me personally, I'm not great at yelling at the police. I just am not good at being out there and being like, fuck you should be doing this. Like, I just can't do that. But what I can do is I can sit inside of an office and tell a person who's trying to fund the police, hey, that's not the best way to go. Right? Because that's sort of, we need more of those people in office who have our same shared values, who are going to stick up for us. And that's the work of what I have to do. That's the work of where my liberation is tied into right now.
I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. There are some other questions about ventilators. I'm going to put that on hold, Kurt. We're talking very micro local stuff right now, but I get back to that. I want to bring this question from Dan G. He's asking in YouTube that he's hearing more and more Angelinos saying it is time to stop us from being a sanctuary city. This is about immigrants. Can you commit to protecting immigrants from deportation regardless how they enter the country? All right.
Yeah, I think that it's a very important piece to it. And I think that, again, and I don't ever want to use like my religious background as some crutch to say I will or will not do something. But for me personally, having sanctuary cities is very important, right? And that's a really big piece of what makes LA, different cultural backgrounds. I mean, like, it is a joy. I didn't grow up here. It's a joy to ride around and be able to be in different neighborhoods and be in different parts of community and bring in those aspects of people's heritage into the work that they do, into the businesses that they own, into the food that they make, into the types of products that they bring, right? It's not just about this capitalist piece, but really this care of people feeling safe to try and raise their children here, to build a community and have, religious holdings. I think it's really important for us to continue this model of care and to, of course, continue to protect immigrants from deportation. I mean, I want to say that I'm obviously anti-police, so that includes ICE, that includes deportation.
Abolish ICE for sure.
Especially people who are coming as refugees to this country because of our country's odd politics in other places, right? Yes, we're going to see, especially as the climate injustice stuff happens, more and more climate refugees coming to this city.
100%. I want to say this very clearly to people right now. This state wouldn't be the 6th largest economy in the world if it wasn't for immigrants. I want to also say that immigrants make a huge contribution, enormous contribution to our economy and to our culture. They take care of our kids. They're CEOs. They're entrepreneurs. They serve the best tacos and empanadas and arepas of the world. They are your neighbor and they're there for you. I think it's time not just here, but everywhere, that we decolonize our minds and start understanding the importance and the contributions that immigrants have here and everywhere. I also want to add for people that like, oh, espera, pero ¿por qué se vienen para acá? Why do you immigrate here? I hear this often. And I hope, and I'm asking kindly, for you to go and understand international relations and what this country does in other countries so that people have to immigrate here. For instance, going and setting up shops in other places and paying people $1 a day for their hard work so that you can buy a pair of Nikes for $300. Okay, so you sit with that, get acquainted, and I'm so glad that you talked about climate refugees, because that's more and more we're gonna see that. And I mean, there's so many aspects, and I'm gonna stop there because then I'm gonna go into the Colombia issue, and I don't want to go there. We need to keep going. And okay, so this question is actually interesting. Kerr is asking. Let me find it. I kind of lost it, but I want to find it again. Okay, so he's seen alarming across the country. They show that buildings ventilation at home, which allow COVID. But I also want to add that a lot of old buildings, especially in LA, have gas stoves. I have a gas stove. And gas stoves, and my gas stove is not being used right now because I'm here, guys, talking to you. So it's turned off, but guess what? It's still emitting methane and gases that are very harmful to your health. And a lot of people live in small places. I'm a renter. Families live together, and it's really bad. So let's get into it. Kerr wants to talk about building homes and the ventilation in building some homes. I'm not quite sure what is your question, but which is allowing COVID to continue in our communities. So my question is, do we have a plan for upgrade to ventilation?
Do I have a plan personally? I mean, one of the things.
Yeah, I guess.
Well, I mean, this kind of, I think, ties into some of the air pollution pieces that I was talking to earlier. So Burbank, the city of Burbank and the Burbank airport, right, retrofitted people's homes underneath the Burbank flight path. They put in double pane windows. They paid for better insulation and circulation. And so CD6 could do that, right? We could pay to have people have double pane windows, and at least that would protect people while they were inside, right? That doesn't decrease air pollution outside, but it definitely helps with ventilation and in your health while you're inside of your home. And I think that too, in the purpose to upgrade in ventilation and the gas stoves, like that is a huge piece, right? I've lived in an apartment with a gas stove that didn't have any hooded ventilation at all, right? Just like in your home, all done. And so I think that some of the work that needs to be done, right, is to incentivize people who owned these buildings to take better care of the people who are living in these buildings.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Climate Emergency Mobilization Office is doing a beautiful job when it comes to that. They're more of an environmental justice lens, but in terms of ventilation and just like upgrading your home, the hope is that we don't create an issue where we gentrify communities and evict people because we're making it never ends. Yes, Pablito, we talked about Ohio a minute ago. You missed it. Do you want to say anything else about Ohio and the trains and the explosions? And I mean, it had happened also in Pennsylvania. Is there anything that you want to add? I think, Pablo, and we also in Los Angeles, we're not in LA. So if you want to maybe narrow your comment, give it to us so we can, talk about it.
I mean, I've been paying attention to some of this stuff that's going on in Ohio, and I would say that I've been paying much more attention to my local politics than that. And I can, of course, that is devastating, right? To have this train derailment, to have this chemical spill, to have the government there decide that we can just evacuate people and maybe things aren't going to be so bad. And so I feel that it is a symptom of us not taking care of the people who live in these areas when people could have been paid better, people could have had more rest, my understanding is that they didn't have enough conductors or they didn't have enough staff, and that these kinds of things are happening more and more because we're trying to cut corners on things like this. And that is definitely
We don't have
reminiscent
enough
to some of the work
regulations. That's what it
that's
is. Regulations
happening.
have been moved.
Right, they're kind of removing regulations that's happening locally to try and hold power and money in some ways, and so I feel like that's maybe the connection that I could make personally to Ohio without having been entrenched in all of the work that's happening there.
Got you. Okay, so I feel like people are having an audio problem, is saying somebody, but I can hear you fine.
Oh, good.
Uh, I'm not sure. I can
Oh,
hear you
no.
perfect. Yeah, somebody's saying that there's an audio issue. I'm not sure. Can you guys hear me? Okay. So people want to get into the Nury Martinez here, and I think we got bigger fish to fry, and we have 5 minutes left.
I want
So
to say one thing about the Nury Martinez thing. I want to say that no, we have not healed from, and the question is, have we healed from her racist time in office? And I want to say that one of the things that we could do to heal from her racist time in office is to elect a anti-racist Black woman, right? Like you cannot move forward from racism without calling it out, being intentional about it, and then making that move to heal, to not only listen to people who aren't going to vote for you anyway, who are going to feel like you're never going to be their candidate, and to still stand up and say, you know what, I'm still going to do the work for you, because that's what it means to be your city councilwoman and to care deeply about your community. And so
got you.
that is
So I
why I'm
guess
the best.
the better question, at least to me, would be what makes you the best candidate, to heal and grow. Um, I mean, unfortunately, we can't control what others do, but you can do what's best for you. So, I mean, what's best? So,
What's
what do
best
you
is
think?
not to throw anyone away, right? That's what our previous councilwoman was willing to do. And I think that's what other people who are in this race are going to be willing to do. They're going to be willing to throw people away for money, for profit, and for their own clout. And that's not why I'm running. That's not why I'm here. This is definitely to make sure that we've got people who are in office who care deeply about what you need and what we can do for you. So I'm a community organizer. This is for you. This is not for me.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay. So, let's see. One last question because we have to get going. Let me see. What is, in your opinion? Oh, wait. What is your opinion on granting people in a state prison and local jails the right to vote?
I think that more democracy is always better,
Mhm.
right? They are considered people who live in these areas and in these districts, and then we remove their ability to make decisions about our democracy and decisions about the way that they live. And the reason why we don't let them vote is because they would vote for people who would get them out of prison, right? So yes, I
Right.
think that voting rights should be for everyone. I also would be okay with having people who live locally. I don't know about this on a federal level, but having immigrants and undocumented people be able to vote locally if they're living in a certain place,
Yeah,
because
that would be great too.
they also
Especially
live
for, like,
here.
in San Francisco, they allow them to vote for school board. You know, I think
I
they should
agree.
be allowed to vote for city council, in my opinion. And I think we
Yeah,
should also enlarge the city council number.
I
And
definitely
we should have more city council members. And I also think we should have give people the funds so that they can, get a stake in the political process, so that they can also donate. Because since our system is about money, so let's just give money to people so that they can donate it and contribute to the candidate that they prefer. And on that note, how can people get in touch with you? Um, how can people donate to your campaign? How can they find you? And how can they volunteer? What can they do?
Yeah, if you go to AntoinetteForLA.com, it has all of the information you need. It's you can donate there, you can sign up to volunteer, you can see what events we're up to, you can phone bank for us and canvas for us. We've got all of these things going on, and so I am really excited because we are the people-powered campaign, right? We're not taking corporate donations from anyone. We're not taking interest money. We're not taking police union or fossil fuel or real estate investment. And so what gets us into city hall is you donating money so that we can pay canvassers, so that we can buy literature and materials when we do canvassing. All of this is, and again, it is not funding me. It is funding the campaign of people powered and the movement to push us further into City Hall. And so,
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. Anything else that you want our community to, to learn about you before we go?
I mean, all of this is based on care, right? Anything that I come up with, anything that I want to do when I get into office is to support the people who've already started, right? I'm excited to work with the progressive candidates who are already in city council. I want to be an extra voice, not this person off in my own little world. And so I think it's really important both to know that we can build a community on city council so that we can take care of communities in LA. So I'm excited to do the work.
Thank you so much for being here with us. Wow, an hour really went by fast. This conversation has been so inspiring. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's so much. I have so much hope for what's coming for our city. Thank you for taking the courage as someone that has run for office. My God, like it's so hard. So congratulations and thank you so much for taking such an incredible step. Like I said, it's extremely hard to do something like that. And I hope that everybody can head to AntoinetteForLA.com and contribute. Any little bit matters and is necessary. When is the election?
The last day of the election is April 4th. And ballots drop, I believe, March 13th. So within that
Woo!
first couple of weeks of March
Okay. So
is
we have
when you get your mail-in ballots, and by April 4th, we're on to the we're on to the runoff, hopefully. So we just
amazing,
gotta make it.
amazing.
Yeah.
All right. So everybody, if you live in the area in District 6, please check out Antoinette. And, the conversation always continues online. So when we're done with this video, please send it to your friends, share it online so that more people can get to know the incredible work that Antoinette is doing and learn more and participate and get involved. So this is it for now. You have a great night, Antoinette, and thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I loved it. This is so great. Connect with me online and hopefully to talk to all of you soon.
All right. Thank you so much. All right, you all. Thank you so much for being here with me tonight in this Valentine's Day edition. I had so much fun talking to Antoinette and getting to know her better. I hope you guys have a lovely rest of your evening. And please don't forget to check out her stuff online. And please also share this video with your friends. Thank you so much, everyone, and have an amazing evening. Bye.